Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. We are back again quite quickly. So let me do the quick YouTuber stuff and then we will get right into this. First of all, give the channel a subscribe if you have not done so already, no matter where you're watching, because this does get propagated out to Rumble and BitChute, so really would appreciate whatever they call it there, a subscription, a follow. I don't care. I would just super appreciate your support. You can follow me on Twitter. I am Karen Ann Harlos, and it's never not spicy. Whenever I think it's not going to be spicy, it is. What I love, and by love I mean hate, what I love most is when people make certain assumptions and those assumptions really just go down in flames. And the test of integrity is whether that person then just takes the L and is like, oops, my bad, or they just pretend like they didn't say something really stupid. And we saw a fantastic example of someone doing the latter over the past few days. And last but not least, I would really appreciate your support on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I've gotten a lot of things done these past few days, but one thing I wanted to do was get a few more t-shirts up, because if you're watching on YouTube, particularly on your computer, I don't think it shows on the mobile app, you can see my store along the bottom, and I would appreciate it if you would pick up some merch, but I got some good ones I have planned. All right. And I wanted to show you before we got into the show, I don't know if Mike Seebeck is here watching tonight, but I showed you all the glass he got me. This little glass probably isn't the right word, but like drinking container, that cool little pink. It was like a wine glass, I guess, but the texture of it was so interesting. Well, he also found me this super cool two-tone gavel. And let me tell you, this thing is heavy. Like, someone breaks into the house, I can beat them with this thing. This is super, super heavy. I would love to know where he got this from, but it is so gorgeous. So this will now be my gavel of choice. I know it's like so strange that I just have gavels lying around, isn't it? I've got this other gavel. Now this is super light, and obviously quite cheaper, but I travel with this one. Yes, have gavel. We'll travel. I travel with this one when I do parliamentary work in case the presiding officer forgot a gavel. And it's better to have a light one for that, A, in case it gets damaged, but B, so it doesn't weigh quite so much on the plane. Though Southwest doesn't care. I could just strap a bunch of them to my body and get a free seat. But this is my travel gavel. And this is going to be my home gavel. And believe it or not, I do have another gavel down here. Oh, I believe I do. Hold on. Where? Oh, yes, see? And I have this cute little lucite one, too, that we used for Cult of R1R. How many other YouTubers have 3 gavels down in their studio, huh? I can't close this drawer now. All right, we're going to get right to the show now. I do appreciate your comments. And one thing I've really enjoyed about the show yesterday, and hopefully will enjoy about the show today, is, at least for me, I'm learning this stuff as we go. I didn't bring my glasses. This is going to be fun. Oh, I do have my pink one ran out of batteries. I do have my little old lady magnifying glass, so I guess we could use that if I can't read. But what I've enjoyed about this is that we're learning together. I mean, I'm sure there are some constitutional scholars that already know these things, but that is not most of us. And speaking of constitutional scholars, I can tell you this story now because I don't work there anymore, and I'm not going to give you any names. But at a former law office that I worked at, there was a constitutional law attorney that I did some work for. We did some work on mask mandate cases, which was a lot of fun. And she was very libertarian, like very libertarian, but not really like openly so or a party member or anything like that. But she told me this story. She's like, one day I was sitting there in my constitutional law class and it just hit me out of the blue. She's like, it just really just hit me. And she's like, this is all bullshit. This is just all utter bullshit. And then she looked around and she's like, no one else sees this. And I just loved that story. Yes, Mike, and I hope you saw that I shared the gavel. Okay, so what we're going to deal with today is I promised yesterday that I would try to find out if the Colorado Supreme Court decision... Did I put things back in order? Yeah, no, of course I didn't. That if the Colorado Supreme Court decision ever mentioned the appointments clause or the commissions clause, because that would be really bad, because that was super important in interpretation of the 14th Amendment, Section 3. And it turns out they didn't. There's 214 pages of opinion with dissent, and they don't go through it at all. How is this? I mean, I don't like to say it's intellectually dishonest, but it's wow to not even deal with that. But I want to show you something they did that is completely circular, that it was so bad that I read it and I'm like, I have an unhealthy, perhaps probably for an anarchist, respect for judges. Just maybe because of the field I work in, and I have read a lot of really good legal opinions. So as I said yesterday, generally, even if it's a court decision I disagree with, I don't go, oh, they're just morons. I mean, it takes a lot to become a judge. But so when I read this in my additional research, I'm like, this can't be this portion as bad as I think it is. Like, I must be the one who's wrong. I must be misunderstanding something here. But I don't see how I am. Maybe you guys can explain it to me, but it is so circular. I'm like, logic much? But also, as I said to you guys, after I did my own little learning experiment, came to my own conclusion live in front of you all, I then did watch some shows of other people's opinions. I didn't want to be unduly influenced prior to my first show. So I did watch Dave Smith's show, and his didn't really deal with the same topic mine is, because I'm really focusing on the jurisdictional issue. He dealt mostly with, was this an insurrection? So that isn't where I've been going, but I do have a small correction. It doesn't matter to his particular, and maybe I missed where he clarified this. But he said this suit was to keep Trump off the ballot. Like, that isn't really what it was. It was off the primary. I know that's a slight difference, and maybe it won't mean as much to people outside of Colorado, but that is a difference. And I found people being kind of a little bit sloppy about that, but some people being super precise. But I watched this other show with this just really, I don't even know how to put it, because I'm not trying to put it in an insulting way, because I'm actually loved the guy and loved the show, but like the good old fashioned, just wise attorney, you know? And I really enjoyed his opinion, not just because he agreed with me, though of course I did enjoy that part, but he started off just like I did, going, if Trump doesn't meet the jurisdictional requirements, the rest of it doesn't matter. And I'm glad, like, I like being affirmed by somebody who comes to these, like, conclusions outside of me, because it shows that I'm not going completely off track, that there are other crazy people like me. Do I have some kind of, like, weird, I feel like I'm getting another weird bump on my face, but that one, so it's so opposite in your camera, it's this side. Yeah, that's starting to go away mostly, that excision that I had to have. So anyway, he went right where I did with the jurisdictional question, which was interesting, and came to the to the same conclusions. But he also brought out, which I don't think we think about much when it's talking about the jurisdictional area, the people that are subject to this, where it specifically mentions electors and not president and vice president. And that really is an argument, very much so, to the fact that president or vice president weren't meant to be included in the jurisdictional qualifications. Because today, I do not think and when I use the word appreciate, I don't mean appreciate as in think it's a good thing. Maybe the word I'm looking for is apprehend or grok. Maybe that's really the word I'm looking for. I don't think we really take into our beings today the electoral college system, because it's fallen into a lot of disrepute. But it wasn't that way back at the time the 14th Amendment was written. So when it's dealing with people running for office, when it's going to be dealing with president and vice president, we forget that when you vote, you're really not voting for president or vice president. You're voting for the slate of electors that get sent to the electoral college. So it was those people that were subject to the jurisdictional requirements, not the president and vice president itself. So that is also an interesting point that he had brought up. So now let me get into what I wanted to talk about that I thought was so bad in the Colorado decision. And let me see if I can find those pages, because of course I didn't organize these after the last show. but we want to go to about page 75 in the opinion, but let me make sure that's the right page. Well, we're going to start with page 73. So let me go to this other screen. I do have the Colorado Supreme Court decision up, and we do have page 73. So I'm prepared. I'm more prepared than normal. Now, I found it really amazing, even more so, that the Colorado Supreme Court did not deal with the appointments or the commissions clause when they do deal with other clauses, which is really interesting. And Mike, just as an FYI, I don't go to Facebook anymore, so I had not read that, or if it's a live thing. I just don't go to Facebook anymore. I post reels there, but that's about it. I don't read or watch stuff on Facebook any longer. Just can't stand the book of faces. Boomer book, face boomer, whatever you would like to call it. So it would be somewhat understandable if they didn't deal with any other clauses at all. If they just dealt with the 14th Amendment in isolation, because I showed in isolation, their parallelism argument isn't entirely crazy, where they had said officers of the United States is parallel to offices. We could look at the exact wording, but that the officer's phrase is equivalent to the office's phrase. And I do think it is very awkward that they are not equivalent, but I came to the conclusion last show, went an hour into coming to that conclusion, that they are not equivalent. So if all they did was deal with the 14th Amendment, Section 3 by itself, okay, you can understand why that parallelism reading would be so strong. However, they did go to other clauses. So why didn't they deal with the commissions clause and the appointments clause? Because you can see here on 73, they deal with the impeachment clause. And what they seem to be obsessed with is proving, and here's where the circularity comes in. They are quite content to go to other areas of the Constitution to prove, and it's funny because nobody disputes this point. It's like spending all your time proving an undisputed point, then saying one thing is equivalent to the other without necessarily proving it, and then pointing to your conclusion as like your presumptions of your conclusion as proof. Basically, I'm just describing a circular argument. So they go to great lengths to prove that president is in office. I think everyone agrees that president is in office. And they think proving that somehow proves through ordinary colloquial usage that president, if president is in office, then the president is an officer of the United States. Why don't they go to the other areas of the Constitution that mention that exact phrase, officer of the United States, rather than spending so much time on just office? If you are going to be going to other areas of the Constitution to prove that the president holds an office, then why wouldn't you do the exact same amount of work showing that that then is equivalent to the way the phrase officer of the United States is used in the Constitution? So you can see they go to the impeachment clause here, and then also the incompatibility clause. Why didn't you go to the commissions clause and the appointments clause? I just find that really interesting. But, and then they go to another one. I can't pronounce that word. The emoluments, you know me and pronunciations. They go to that clause. What happened to the commissions and appointments clause? But here's where I want to go, because I've heard conservatives bring up this argument, And I don't know why everyone finds this so compelling. Now, maybe I'll convince myself it's compelling, like I convinced myself yesterday. I went into the show yesterday, not sure of what my conclusion would be. Okay, it said the district court found it compelling that an earlier draft of the proposed section listed the presidency. This is dealing with the offices, though, not officers of the United States. But that version ultimately passed did not include that. So, as a starting point, however, we are mindful that it is always perilous to derive the meaning of an adopted provision from another provision deleted in the drafting process. Yes, they're quoting a case, and as I said before, I know we hold case law in such high regard, and, we operate in this country on the principle of stare decisis, but still, this is not the word of God. I actually disagree that it's always perilous to do that, because to me, that is a good way to determine legislative intent, but whatever. That's what they're going with. And it says in the specifics of the change, let's go to the next page. From the earlier draft to what was ultimately passed, do not demonstrate an intent to exclude the presidency from the covered offices. But the covered offices aren't under dispute. I think nearly everyone, I don't want to say everyone, because there's always somebody out there that makes a contrary argument, but in general, if jurisdictionally president is an officer of the United States, then the presidency as an office is one of the disqualified offices. I don't think anyone disputes that. So anyway, the draft proposal provided, and if anyone is arguing that the president isn't one of the offices that are excluded, I don't know. Let me see your proof of that. I didn't really get into that last time. I was dealing with the jurisdictional statement, not to which offices it applies once you've met the jurisdictional statement. But anyway, the draft proposal provided that insurrectionist oath breakers could not hold the office of president or vice president of the United States, senator or representative in the National Congress, or any office now held under appointment from the President of the United States and requiring the confirmation of the Senate. Later versions of this section, including the enacted draft, removed specific reference to President and Vice President and expanded the category of office holder to exclude any office, civil or military, rather than only those offices requiring presidential appointment and Senate confirmation, rather than just officers, because those are the ones that are appointed, but they don't deal with that here. It is hard to glean from the limited available evidence what the changes across proposals mean. I actually don't think it's difficult whatsoever. But we find persuasive Amicai's suggestion that Representative McKee, who drafted these proposals, most likely took for granted that his second proposal included the president. And I don't agree with that. And I don't disagree with that. Once you pass the jurisdictional hurdle, obviously one of the disqualified offices that the subject person would be disqualified from holding is the president. That's not what's under dispute here. What's under dispute is whether jurisdictionally President Trump, as having only taken an oath as prior president, did so as an officer of the United States. He is that weird single use case, because every other president before him would have fallen under that jurisdictional requirement because they held prior offices that were very clearly under that jurisdiction. I just don't think they really anticipated a person like Trump. And that's an oopsie on their part, but too bad, so sad. It says, while nothing in Representative McKee's speeches mentions why his express reference to the presidency was removed, again, all of this is irrelevant. It's like they're using words to paper over the fact that they're not dealing with the argument. because none of this, like, it's like, yeah, okay, I agree with this. His public pronouncements leave no doubt that his subsequent draft proposal still sought to ensure that rebels had absolutely no access to political power. No, that's not, in fact, the case. Rebels that fell under the jurisdictional requirement did not have access to very expansive political power. He's dealing with the targeted offices they'd be disqualified from, not the people who would be disqualified. And if that was a mistake on their part, that's fine, but they're dealing with the wrong section here. Or as I often like to say, the emphasis is on the wrong syllable. Representative McKee explained that under the proposed amendment, the loyal alone shall rule the country. Again, dealing with the offices that are disqualified from. And there was nobody who would fall under the instance in the historical context of having only sworn an oath as president and not under any other office. So his statement in that historical context was correct. They can't read the future. This amendment was such a huge mistake. It goes, when you get up in your feels, and, you know, we do this in bylaws as well. I've often said, show me an organization's bylaws, and I'll be able to see the artifacts of its past traumas. Because a lot of times you will see weird provisions in the bylaws, and we have these in Colorado, that are meant to prevent a really bad situation that happened in the past from happening again. And those can accrue. And every once in a while, you need to look at them and go, is that really still needed? Or can it be condensed? Or can it be made more clear? But the governing documents of a country, of an organization, of a society, of an assembly, is the longer it's been around, it shows the scars of its past traumas. And that's exactly what the 14th Amendment, this part of it has a lot to do with. So it said, when considered, anyway, it says it indicates that Representative McKee desired to exclude all oath-breaking insurrectionists from all federal offices, including the presidency. They did not prove that here. All they were proved here, they did a jump here and papered over the missteps. It does show that Representative McKee desired that all people that would be covered as oath-breaking insurrectionists were excluded from all federal offices. But since there were no oath-breaking insurrectionists at that time that would have met the specific use case of President Trump, this does not mean that the presidency is an officer of the United States. They are assuming their conclusion here and not dealing with the actual facts of the situation. So it says, when considered in light of these pronouncements, the shift from specifically naming the president and vice president, again, not in dispute, that if you meet the jurisdictional qualifications, you can't be president or vice president, in addition to officers appointed and confirmed, why didn't you deal then with the appointments and commissions clause, to the broadly inclusive any officer, civil or military, cannot be read to mean that the two highest offices in the government are excluded from the mandate of Section 3. They're dealing with all of Section 3 as if it were one indivisible thing. But as we showed last time, it's broken into 4 parts. Jurisdiction, then the target, the offices, if you met the jurisdiction that you'd be disqualified from, the thing you would have had to have done, and the potential for Congress to override. So that's really just the extra things I wanted to cover today that I had promised. If I come to any additional conclusions or God forbid, change my mind on anything, I will let you know. I'm going to be doing a specific show, not on this topic, but just on the topic of changing one's mind, because that just seems to be like the most grievous sin lately. I've now been in the party almost 10 years. There are things I said 8 years ago that I don't agree with today. I would think that should show open-mindedness and growth, but apparently, you're not allowed to ever change your mind. And when you've been a public figure, and there is great peril to being a public figure when in your early days, let's say you're earlier, even though I haven't been in the party that long. I mean, there's a big difference between 10 years and 2 years. It can be a bit perilous, because when you're just a newborn in a particular movement, you're going to say some things that you're not going to agree with as you mature into the philosophy. So it becomes perilous to be somewhat of a public figure that early on, because you definitely said some things that you're not going to agree with. And I'm going to be saying things today, I don't mean literally today, but during this period of time, that, God willing, I'm still here in 10 years, I won't agree with. We have to give each other that grace, as long as somebody can explain why they changed their mind. But to not allow people to change their positions is just batshit. Okay, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night, and potentially I'll see you tomorrow, but I am back at work tomorrow. But, you guys will laugh. And anyone on the bylaws committee, I did finish a draft copy of the bylaws town hall report this weekend. It's not emailed out to you, because I have in my drafts folder all kinds of emails that when I get up tomorrow and get on the train to go to Denver, send. I don't take holidays. To me, this time off is like time to get some work done, uninterrupted. But I wasn't about to assume that everyone else lived that kind of life. So I spared everyone's inboxes from my emails, and they are sitting in drafts. But the bylaws committee will be getting several emails tomorrow of work I've done for you guys to review. The LNC will be getting several emails. The state chairs will be getting email as well, because I will be sending out tomorrow also the delegation chair manual. And maybe that's what we'll go over tomorrow if there is time. I do think I have a ballot access committee meeting tomorrow. I need to take a look at my schedule. Now, the bylaws committee is meeting every week until we get our proposals done. Mike, cover your ears. cover your ears, damn it. I actually hope we meet every week until we just get the frickin' report done so we can fly and be free, because we've been doing this a year now, and I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm turning into Krabby Pants on that committee, because we've been meeting every 2 weeks now for a year. Very dedicated committee, but it's time for it to be done. It's time to be over. So we shall see. I don't think the rest of the committee is going to go for that. And of course, the committee decides. Mike, I did send you an email earlier, because I know that you know my work ethic and you have the same work ethic, letting you know that pretty much the platform committee has been appointed, but you have to still wait till December 31st, because there's one state that probably is not going to appoint anyone, that we still have to give them the opportunity to do so. But you should have that. If you don't have that email, let me know, because I did send it about an hour ago, I think. And is that everything I have to say? Oh, and the Convention Oversight Committee is now meeting weekly. So yeah, a lot of these other committees, we need to be done. I like it. That two-tone thing is super cool. Anyway, have a good night, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Wednesdays, as I said, Convention Oversight, because we're meeting weekly. But the next thing we'll probably cover is the Delegation Chairs Manual, because that will be easy and fun. All right. Have a good evening. Mi guapa, stay libertad.
what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to